Davos was a huge success for us, and you had some other great journalistic moments there. I won't show them all now, but we did set up a special website for our trip, wefreports.com. We're going to use that same website for our next trip. So I encourage folks, Avi, you had some great sort of hidden microphone, hidden camera moments, and I had a walking scrum with Greta Thunberg, which was very fruitless, but you can find all those at wfreports.com. But I want to talk about a couple of other exciting moments you had. Now, you cover Australia very well, but I want to talk about two other adventures you went on. The first one was to New Zealand. And as a North American, I think, well, Australia and New Zealand, they're right next to each other. No way. That is hours and hours of flying. It just looks like they're close because they're the only things there's teeny little Pacific Islands. But with your autobiography, Rebel from the Start, we went to New Zealand for the book tour because New Zealand had, under Jacinda Ardern, tried to block you from entering the country. And they succeeded at first. Why don't you give our viewers a bit of the backstory? We'll remind people, and we'll throw to a clip. I'll let you do that. New Zealand tried to block you, but we got the last laugh. Go ahead, tell the story.
Yes, it was back in, what are we now, 2020? I think it was end of 2022, if I'm not mistaken, where there was one of the final, big anti-lockdown protests that were happening, freedom protests. And I was going there with Rukshan to actually cover this event. And the funny thing is, it ended up being a very it was a bit of a fizzle. It was people had already started to lose interest in the cause because they were getting back their freedoms or whatever it was. But as I arrived at the airport, the Qantas staff were a bit puzzled because they'd received a notification that they'd never received before from someone with an Australian passport, is that my passport was flagged and I needed to speak to the New Zealand Customs Immigration. Immigration comes on the phone and basically tells me that you're being banned because of I can't remember they were saying that I had under the character assessment that they're doing over the phone. And which had all stemmed from the days before. Somebody had, Chantel Baker, which was one of the people we were going to go interview, had announced on her Telegram that we were coming, which set off the mainstream media machine in running hit pieces, and within the hit pieces, asking the government as to why they are not banning me on character grounds. And I could tell straight away what had happened, but we didn't have the proof yet. Mm. And over the next few months, as we do every time, as soon as somebody oversteps the line, our supporters, the viewers watching this now, who I'm grateful every time because they're always there to back us in these moments. But they came on board, and we hired the lawyer, we hired immigration agents. In fact, we hired them as soon as those hit pieces came out, and we started the process in applying for the actual visa and getting this decision overturned. Now, at the time, I had no idea what the book was. We didn't even know when the book was. I was working on the book, but it wasn't no idea as to when I was going to be granted and when the book would be finished. In the meantime, we managed to receive all their internal communications, firstly between what are they called, the international police, Interpol, plus the internal communications just between immigration there, plus the communications between the ministry and
that was leaked to you. I mean, I think we also did an access request, but some bureaucrats on the inside they actually leaked it to you, right?
Yeah, at first it was a police from Interpol. A police officer had leaked those first communications, which gave us kind of the footing onto what to do, freedom of information, because sometimes you've got to be quite specific to know what you're looking for so they can't hide. And but it was somebody going, this is complete nonsense. Somebody in law enforcement saying they're banning you. It was all politically motivated, and it was proven it was politically motivated by the internal communications, which at that point it became quite clear that they were never going to go to court, because you've got to remember Jacinda Ardern herself lied at a press conference saying that she had nothing to do with it and she only ever heard about it from the from the media, which from the internal communication became quite clear that her office was very much involved, and it was the ministers that were pushing it. Long story short, it was, I guess, divine providence that as I'd finished the book, my visa had come through, because we knew they were not going to actually go to court. They were going to make us jump through every single hoop and drag it out as far as they could, and they did. They made me, to the end, run a federal police check in Australia, which they already had directly from the police because we had in the communications. But it was their legal right to ask it, and it took about 3 months just to get an appointment and get all that done. It came out just as my book had come, and I thought, Ezra, I grew up ultra orthodox. I'm not a big man of faith. I love my heritage and my culture, and I'm proud about where I came from. But I thought, my goodness, right as I finished the book, my visa is granted. It's like somebody is telling me upstairs that the only place that you need to launch this book to kick it off has to be the censorship capital, of at least the Western world, where they literally banned a journalist they didn't like for political reasons. And so we did. We launched the book in New Zealand, and of course Antifa tried to shut us down. But from one of the things that we do really well, I think, at Rebel News is we take negatives and we turn it into a positive. We turn it into a campaign, and then we turn it into a win. Whilst it looks like we're down at first, like the ban, but we overturned it. We showed them for what they were. And then on top of it, when we organized the events in New Zealand, firstly we did the first one in Auckland at the church, at Destiny's Church, where I didn't know much about these guys except for I seen their names pop up during the anti-lockdown protests. They were there at the front. The mainstream media hated them, and I just knew that there was no way they were gonna pull their venue, and we were right. They were fantastic, and the first night was amazing. You were there, Ezra, and then of course the second location. I didn't realize that they had locations all around the country. In fact, I didn't know much about them. I just knew it was safe in Auckland. And as you saw, remember, in the middle of the night, right as we were supposed to have the next event in, where was it, Ezra? Was it Christchurch?
Wellington.
It was in Christchurch. No, Wellington, in the capital. Sorry, and we did it specifically there because that's that was where the protest was that I was supposed to cover. And the Anglican Church pulled out on us on that day early in the morning. And we called Brian Tamaki, we'd formed a relationship from realizing what it was he had, and realizing that this guy has been demonized for years and is an evangelical Christian. And I actually love his style. You don't necessarily have to believe. I'm not a man of particular faith. I just respect everybody's right to believe in what they wish, as long as they're not imposing it on me. And I think he does an amazing job, and he does so much good work that, we called him straight away. And without even thinking, he said, don't worry, we've got a church there, and opened his doors there in Wellington as well, which was an absolute success. Yeah. And I don't think I could have planned it better.
It was incredible. I really got to know a little bit about the Maori people. Brian Tamaki is a leader of the Maori, and in so many ways, he's a religious leader. I think he's a cultural leader. He's a youth leader. He's a political leader. I want to show just some clips of this, because it wasn't just the Avi's book launch. It was how the Maori protected us from Antifa, including, really very exciting, doing what's called a haka. That's sort of the war dance, like that dramatic dance with Avi. Let me show you some clips of that trip, because it was, it was a defeat for cancel culture. It was a success for freedom of speech. And both Jacinda Ardern and her national censorship and Antifa and their attempts to cancel the events both failed. And that's a really big win. Here, let me just show you some of that amazing and momentous time in New Zealand.
Kia ora, North Korea. I am finally here in Auckland, even though the Communist Party tried their very best to stop me with the cover of their state bought and paid for mainstream media. Thank you to the New Zealand Herald for promoting my book. Big news, guys, that we need you to share everywhere. Overnight, in middle of the night, we received an email that the venue in Wellington has pulled our event due to sustained threats of violence against. Is the same New Zealand Herald that keeps telling us Chantel is not a reliable source. Suddenly, she was so reliable that her rumour was enough to run a hit piece on me demanding the government ban me.